Hello everyone, welcome back to Trek A Day. Just finished watching the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, A Space Adventure Hour. It's definitely an odd one, and it's one of those that is really going to divide audiences. I'm a little mixed, but overall, I really enjoyed it, and I think it's one that I will like probably more in revisiting. We'll see as I rewatch these at the end of the season. I'll go back and rewatch all the episodes and just kind of talk about my impressions then, after getting kind of the whole picture of the season. Starts with a cold open that is probably my favorite thing in the entire episode, because it just is this quirky kind of, in the back of your mind you're thinking the entire time, this is kind of stupid, but I also kind of love this, with a fake 60s sci-fi series, very exaggerated version of the style of the time, very neon colored, with this The Last Frontier, which is part homage to the period, part silly parody of the original series, if the original series had the cringy, awkward dialogue and laughable sets and effects of Doctor Who instead of TOS. So it's sort of an overall homage slash parody, goofy, exaggerated look at some sci-fi from the time period to create an intentionally hilarious and intentionally bad show as a backdrop to the adventure story, the murder mystery that we would have in the holodeck. And it really works for what it is. It was just colorful, it was over the top, it was so silly but meant to be silly and ridiculous, and to the point of even like Paul Wesley's very exaggerated Captain Kirk. It reminded me a lot of some of the old parodies of TOS, just on like Saturday Night Live, things like that, where it's meant to be silly and over the top. And stylistically, I just really love this kind of candy-coated corniness to it. It was a fun little thing, and the fake opening for that fake show, I actually really liked that. It was really just a funny, tongue-in-cheek concept. And then we get into the meat of the episode, and the part that was going to be hard to make work, and they kind of did. It's suspension of disbelief a little bit there. Going into the holodeck concept of the episode, an up-and-coming technology that they want to test out on a starship, seeing if it is a viable concept for a way of entertaining crews that are on much longer missions. And they want it to be tested under real-life circumstances, not being just on a space station or planet side in a controlled environment with a dedicated power source and everything just in the best of controlled environments. They wanted to wait until they could see how this technology could function in the real world, during a mission. So we have sort of our B-plot of the Enterprise purposely putting itself in a situation where this technology really has to be tested. And there is that fine line of, yes, is the holographic technology on display in the episode beyond the capacity of the time frame in which Strange New Worlds takes place? Yes, but they do their best to make it work, giving a nod to the Rec Room concept that did exist. A very rudimentary version of holodeck technology was supposed to have existed on the original Enterprise, and we do get a glimpse of that in like the animated series and some books and things like that. And yes, what is shown is a little beyond that, but it's also shown as a technology is not quite there yet, and it's too much for the Enterprise to really handle. So they kind of make it work to where, sure, it's a little too impressive, but at the same time, it's shown as this impressive technology is still really beyond the grasp of the time to really efficiently make use of. So that element that I think, even going in, seeing the initial previews and learning the concept of the episode, was really like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? They do a really good job of trying to make it work, and then having a reason for the cast to play these characters, how one of the limitations of the system is that the only way they can create realistic looking and feeling characters is to use patterns that are on file that are complex enough, things from the transporter buffers. That's why it is these familiar faces. And okay, they make that work, and everyone is really showing how much this episode is probably a lot of fun to to act in. Jonathan Frakes being the director of this episode, you really kind of get that feeling once you really see things that he has directed within Star Trek or something like the Orville. You can kind of start seeing his style a bit once you realize he directed it, and you get that feeling, and it feels like something that everyone was really on board with. You can see them having fun with these new characters that they're playing in the holographic murder mystery that they're using to test the system. And again, I like the visual flair and the style. La'an looks fantastic and did a great job with that character. So overall, the murder mystery thing looked great. Everyone did a really good job. It was fun, but it was never quite as witty and entertaining as I think it thought it was. It was still good and it was still entertaining, but I don't know. I wanted a little bit more from it, but functioned fairly well and was still enjoyable again to watch. And we get then some fake bloopers from the fake sci-fi show at the end. That was again sort of cheesy, but in a fun way. And so it was a very fun, playful episode that I found to be overall enjoyable. It wasn't a knock it out of the park total crazy success, but overall I thought it was fun. It was a lot better than I expected, and again, the more problematic elements, they worked their way around and had a good way of showcasing Scotty in those moments of really struggling as the Enterprise is struggling to run this program. Like the power of the Enterprise is being used to run the holodeck and putting the ship in danger, and Scotty has to try and figure things out and get a little bit more of him opening up about his experience with the Gorn, him being a little bit tentative to ask for help, ask for any kind of assistance, and wanting to, in these early days, still kind of put on that self-sufficient miracle worker persona. And so a lot of things in here came together and worked and made a pretty solid, goofy, fun time. And yeah, it's just a silly, fun episode that I can't wait to watch again once the season has wrapped up and see if my thoughts change on it or not. But yeah, it was pretty much just a solid, funny episode to watch with a lot of creativity on display.